Hi there, I'm Mary Susie from beadmeastory.com, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make this stretchy tweak chain bracelet. The tweak chain has an interesting history. This was first brought forth by Joshua Diliberto in 2014 as a pure chainmail weave with only metal to it, and this was taught to him by a gentleman he met at a Renaissance fair in St. Louis, and his name was Louis Bracht. So Louis Bracht was the creator of this weave originally, and what we've done is I've taken this and made it into something that can be stretchy and that has a slightly new dimension to it because of that. And this is a very loose kind of a chain. It doesn't have full play, but I do think this could be used as a necklace for sure, as long as it was a shorter necklace. And the other thing I think you'll find is because this is based on an inverted round weave, which tells you that it's 3 sides to this weave, there is a center portion, and this could also have a wire put through the center of it, and so you could use head pins and eye pins and make components or earrings or things like that out of it. So it's a really interesting chain. I'll just show you. I've done this. This one is turquoise with sky blue. This is our purplicious color and lavender jump rings. And then I did all of the tutorials in the silver and black. I just found that the photos turned out the best, and I thought you could see most clearly how to do this project. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's talk materials. So if you want to buy your own materials after trying this and do some in your own color choices, all you need is our 3mm rubber O-rings. We have these custom made for us, so I doubt you will find these anyplace else but Bead Me a Story. This is a mixed bag, and you can see we have tons and tons of colors in these, so feel free to choose what you'd like. If you have a wrist size that's 6 1/4 inch or less, so if you measure your wrist and you're 6 1/4 or less, then 1 bag of these will do just fine. And if you are larger than that, then I would pick up 2 bags of the 3mm rubber O-rings. These are bags of 100, and that should do it for the size that you need. The other thing that you're going to need is 20 gauge 3/32 jump rings, and 20 gauge means that these are a 0.8 thickness of wire, and the inner diameter of these is approximately 2.4 millimeters. Okay, so these are really tiny. You can see they'll match up really nicely with these little 3mm rubber O-rings, and then we'll use the metal rings to link everything together. I wanted to kind of demystify the supplies for you because this is a very easy set of supplies, and you do have a supply list if you purchase the kit. And this is basically all you'll need for a larger size wrist, and for a smaller size wrist, you just need 1 bag of rubber O-rings and 1 large bag of the jump rings, and you're all set to go. Okay, so to start this weave, first I just want to show you that the materials are extremely small. You can see this up next to my pliers, how tiny the rubber O-rings are. These are 3mm rubber O-rings. And then I'm using our smallest size jump ring, our 20 gauge 3/32, and those are really tiny as well. So the first thing we want to do to start this is we want to make a whole bunch of triangle components, is what I call them in the tutorial. So I do that by taking one of my jump rings, and I'm going to go ahead and pick up 1, 2, and 3 rubber O-rings. Okay, and then I'm going to close my jump ring. Okay, so make sure you have that at 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock. You have a good grip before you start closing your jump ring. This is tiny stuff. Okay, and there is our little triangle component that we need. Okay, now you can see that I've made a few of them here. I'm just going to get these rubber O-rings out of my way. And I've got some more jump rings here. So our next step is to take our very first triangle component. I like to kind of let it spread out so it is a triangle. And you're going to take your jump ring and pass it through. You're going to take 3 separate jump rings, one at a time, and pass each of them through one of these rubber O-rings in the triangle. Okay, so when you do this, try and make sure that the point or the forward prong of the jump ring is going straight through, and that it's not at an angle, and that can be difficult to see because, of course, jump rings are round. So the straighter on it is, the better it's going to pass through. Okay, now you'll notice too that what I'm kind of doing is putting my finger behind the rubber O-ring to keep it from moving around, so I can get this jump ring through it a little bit more easily. If you just let it keep moving around, then it's going to be really hard to get anything through there because it'll just keep getting pushed back on you. Okay, so one more. Notice how I'm going straight through. Okay, and now we have an even bigger triangle because I'm on my 3rd one here. Okay, so that's 3. Now I'm going to take these jump rings and I'm going to bend them upward because this is the direction we're going to be moving. Okay, we're going to continue adding on now to these metal jump rings, and we'll be adding in a new triangle. So our next step is going to be using 3 new jump rings, and we're going to use those like we would in an inverted round. And then we're going to also be adding a new triangle to this work as we go. I'll get one that looks more like a triangle. Okay, so I'm going to take my first jump ring of the 3, and if I kind of designate these, it doesn't matter where you start or where you end, but I'm going to designate my jump rings as 1, this one to the right, 2 is the one to the left, and 3 is the one at the top. Okay, so I want to pass from outside to inside my number 1, and from inside to outside number 2, and then I'm going to close the jump ring. So let me lift this up. So this is my number 1. I'm going to pass from the outside to the inside, inside to outside. Okay, so you can see what that formation looks like. Oops, I almost forgot to do the next step. And then once we do this with our first ring, we're going to bring in another triangle. And so I'm going to take this jump ring and I'm going to pass through just one of the rubber O-rings from the new triangle that we're adding. Okay, so it's going to get a little bit harder to see what we're doing here, but I'm going to turn this so you can see this is really only connected. Okay, so see, that was my number 1 and number 2 over here. I've turned it. And now I want to pass through number 2 from the outside to the inside, and inside to outside of number 3. So you'll notice that as I pass through the second jump ring, that was one of the ones that I used in the last step. Okay, so I pass through here, and then I bring this triangle down, and I want to pass through the next rubber O-ring, the one that would be sitting right above it. So if we fold this back in, this is the one that was right above this. Okay, I pass through there. Sometimes you need to push these back and can get a little tight, but of course the rubber O-rings can be moved quite a bit still at this stage, so go ahead and give things a shift if you can't get your pliers in there. There we go. Sometimes it's hard for me to get a perfect closure on camera, so forgive that. Okay, now number 3. Okay, so this was the 3rd jump ring and this was the first jump ring. And then you can see I have one O-ring left in the new triangle that hasn't been attached, okay? So again, I'm gonna move from outside to inside and then inside to outside. So I'm just passing through those 2 jump rings. And then I'm gonna bring this up, pass through the final rubber O-ring, and I'll close that. Okay, so we've done 1 row. And there we have it. And I want you to notice right off the bat that these are offset. So this first triangle, the next triangle that got added, the O-rings are sitting in between the O-rings from the first row, from the first triangle component, okay? Now let me grab some more jump rings. Okay, we're gonna continue on. So to continue on, we're just repeating the same steps. This is actually real easy once you get the hang of it. We're gonna pass through one of the O-rings. I'm just gonna close that jump ring. Pass through a second rubber O-ring. Kind of use your hand however you need to support that O-ring as you're trying to pass the jump ring through, because as the sooner you get it immobilized, the sooner you can get your jump ring through that you're trying to add. Okay, and then there's our third one. Okay, so I just added 3 jump rings to the last triangle component that I added to this, okay, which was the rubber O-rings that you see underneath. Okay, and now I have 3 new jump rings. And just like before, we're gonna be working off of these jump rings. So I'm just gonna pick, 1, 2, 3. So I'm gonna pass from outside to inside, inside to outside, just like you would for an inverted round. Bring in a new triangle. Attach through one of the rubber O-rings and close. And now before, because I was telling you 1, 2, 3, I was kind of working around this way, but what I actually like to do is move to the next 2 on my right. So I'm really passing through like 3 and 1. Okay, from right to left, left to right of the next 2, and you can see this one's being used over here already that I'm passing through. I'm using that one again. And then up through the rubber O-ring that's directly above it. Close that jump ring, okay? And now this is our last one that we need to do. Okay, so these 2, both of these jump rings that I added to the last O-rings are being used over here and over here. Okay, but we're gonna use those again, and I'm gonna pass from outside to inside, inside to outside, and then pass through the rubber O-ring that is above it. Okay, and this stuff is really tiny, but I promise you, as you go along, this gets a lot easier. This actually moves along, for being such small materials, this project moves along pretty quickly. I'm able to get one done in just a couple of hours. Okay, and then that is our piece. So once again, notice that the first triangle, that the O-rings are offset from the next triangle, and then this one goes back to, so every other triangle, the O-rings should be in line with each other. But you can see the second one I did in between that they're offset. Okay, so let's keep working on this. Let's keep going until we have the full length that we want. And then I'm gonna come back and show you how to finish this. So make a nice long chain of this. Okay, so the length of my piece is now completed. You can see I've done all these rows, and I've actually included, for me, as I said, I was making 34 of the triangles, so I've included every single one of the triangles, and all that I have left is just 3 jump rings. So you can see on my end, I've ended by passing each of the 3 individual jump rings through a rubber O-ring. Okay, and that leaves me with a little triangle ready for inverted round on the end. So let's go ahead and close this piece. So I'm just gonna do exactly the way I've been doing it. I'm gonna pass from outside, inside, inside, outside of my first and second. And then I'm just gonna bring the start up so that that very first set of, that very first triangle component that I had at the very beginning, we're gonna link back into it. So instead of adding a new triangular unit, I'm going to use the starting one, okay? And I'm gonna pass through, oops, sorry about that. Okay, I'm gonna pass through that. So just so you can see that connection. Now I'm gonna let it turn to the side slightly so that I can get over to this next jump ring. I'm gonna pass from outside to inside, inside to outside, and then I'm just gonna connect this through the rubber O-ring that's directly above it. Okay, so for once, one of these rubber patterns has kind of an easy finish to it. And you're not gonna have to work that hard to figure this one out. So I like to spin my work a little bit so that I can reach this final one. It can be a little hard to reach, but you can just spin your work around a little bit. And you see finally here, I've got these 2 jump rings, and they're gonna get connected to this final rubber O-ring, okay? So pass from outside to inside, inside to outside, and then up to the final rubber O-ring. Okay, like I said, it can be tricky to get into there for the last one, but there we go. We have a finished chain, okay? And these are so tiny, you're gonna think that they're beads or glass or something like that, but the rubber O-rings within this are gonna make this stretchy. Okay, so you'll be able to roll it onto your wrist, over your hand, and this does have a little play in it so that it can be stretched. So that is our finished piece. And actually it should be laying a little nicer. Hopefully I didn't get it twisted as I was finishing that last piece. Try not to try and do it as straight as possible, but if it is twisted slightly, it actually really shouldn't even matter for this particular project. So anyway, that's it. Please be sure to give this a try. Like and follow us on YouTube. And you can find this kit or the supplies to make this at beadmeastory.com.